There are currently more than 11 million illegal immigrants in America, and one study suggests they may be costing taxpayers $113 billion a year due to various welfare benefits that they receive. Famed economist Milton Friedman once said, we'd like to quote him here on this show, "There is no doubt that free and open immigration is the right policy in a libertarian state. But in a welfare state, it is a different story. The supply of immigrants will become infinite." The economics behind immigration is very complex. To help us break it all down, Reason Magazine editor-at-large Matt Welch and Trump Hispanic Advisory Council member Steve Cortes. Steve, starting with you. Was Milton Friedman, was he right?
Listen, you might as well call him Saint Milton as far as I'm concerned. He's right about almost everything he ever said. And I really learned most of my economics from him as my tutor, effectively, my online tutor. And listen, I think in this case, he's particularly right. As a free market guy, as an Hispanic, I absolutely love immigration. I'm the son of an immigrant. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for America's welcoming of immigrants from around the world. And by the way, it's not just because of a good heart. It's also because it's smart policy, what it's done for America. When you look at amazing enterprises that were started by either immigrants or the children of immigrants, Google, Tesla, Apple. Having said all of that, we as a people, we do get to determine how much immigration is appropriate for us. And I think this is an important point. Sadly, we have creeped ever more toward a welfare state where there are almost as many people receiving government benefits as there are working. And in that kind of a scenario, I think we have to be particularly careful about slowing immigration. That's
the challenge. I mean, Matt, the $113 billion figure I just referenced, I mean, if you look into that, what you see now is that nearly half of, actually, forgive me, 62% of illegal immigrant-headed households have at least one major welfare program. So that's more than half, and there's a few of them right there. You get school lunch, you got Medicaid, housing, WIC, SNAP, and all of this costs money. So, yes, on the one hand, as Steve points out, there's something truly tremendous and important for economic growth that goes hand in hand with immigration, but you got to make sure that those immigrants don't become a liability for the country in the way of all these welfare benefits.
Well, we should point out that that study was conducted by the Federation for American Immigration Reform, which is a restrictionist group, and the study itself has come under repeated attacks on methodological grounds by any number of organizations.
Okay, well, this other one from the Center for Immigration Studies shows you that 62% of illegal immigrant-headed households use, and we've got similar studies from Heritage, but I know you're going to go after them too.
No,
but anyway,
I mean it's
so let's talk about the theory of this, the principle. If, in fact, you're going to argue that it's good to bring in people to this country, and I'd support that as well, don't you also have to ensure that those people, though, are not going to become a liability on society, but rather are going to help grow this overall economy by therefore not being a drain via these various welfare programs?
As a matter of fact, that insight was baked into the welfare reform package of 1996, which was passed in large parts due to the Milton Friedman quote back in the day. They said if you are a legal immigrant here, you still do not have access to welfare benefits. The only thing that you have access to, and it's a real thing, especially on a localized level, is if you have to go to the emergency room, you'll still be admitted. And your kids, if they are born here and of school age, they will be admitted into public school. But other than that, you are not eligible for federal welfare transfers until you get to a point where you can apply to citizenship, which is 5 years down in the future. That single move had an incredible impact on the jobs ratio and the anti-poverty ratio of immigrants who came to this country. Once they weren't eligible for the same kind of welfare reform.
What would you be telling Donald Trump then if you were advising him on his policy? What does he need to do in order to continue this economic growth? Well, frankly, we haven't had any in the last 8 to 10 years, but in order for us to, be as strong as we possibly can be, economically speaking.
Well, I don't think Donald Trump would listen to me too much on things. He treats immigration like a zero-sum game, and that's incorrect. I prefer the Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush 1980 version of that.
He does, and I don't know if, Steve, we're going to hear that from him tonight. You have more insight being a surrogate to the campaign than I do. But, just in terms of listening, for example, to Rudy Giuliani and some of the comments he has made, I don't know as you're going to hear him be quite as tough as Matt suggests on immigration tonight. What do you think we have to look forward to?
Right.
Right. I think you're exactly right. I think we're going to hear a shift tonight. He's not going to give on some non-negotiables, things like securing the border, the fact that there will be no path to citizenship. We cannot reward criminal activity with all-out citizenship. But I do think regarding the 11 million or so illegals who are already here, we're going to hear about a very humane and sensible policy regarding them, that criminals and dangerous people have to leave immediately. Anyone who's a net drain on our system has to go immediately. After that, when we get to people who have been here for decades, who have been working, who have families, and I don't know this, I'm not speaking for the campaign now, but I suspect that he's going to say that those folks can go through a process not to get citizenship, but to at least remain here.
All right. So, Matt, what's wrong with all that?
Nothing. If he says that we need to increase the number of legal visas, and if we don't necessarily have to have every immigrant become a citizen, then he's on the path to something sane. I question whether he can get there.
We've talked about the political consequences of it all as well, and the thinking is that he might be able to bring in some more voters, maybe like Matt or other people that are perhaps not decided yet because of some changes in his policy. So we'll be watching for all of it tonight. Yes?
Yeah, I think this is just absolutely key. I am so proud of Donald Trump that he is reaching out to people of color, people who are not traditionally Republican constituencies. Years ago, I worked for Jack Kemp, and I think he's channeling the late Jack Kemp in some regards. He used to always say, Republicans, we can't just be comfortable in suburban country clubs and in rural areas. We need to be in the barrio. We need to be in the inner city talking about growth policies. And I think he's starting to do that and going to continue to. He's going to Detroit on Saturday. I think we're going to have a great speech tonight. We can convince these people that the Democrats take them for granted and that we have answers that can make their lives better, more prosperous and safer.
We're going to talk about that coming up. In fact, we've got a whole panel planned on just exactly that topic. So stay with us. Matt, Steve, good to see you guys.